I'll never forget that evening. Sarah and I had just put the kids to bed and were about to watch a movie when the phone rang. The screen displayed my mother-in-law Ellen's name. "Hi, Mom," Sarah answered. "What's happened?" I watched as my wife's face changed from mild surprise to shock and horror. "What? No, this can't be—" Her voice trembled. "We'll come right now." Sarah hung up and looked at me with glassy eyes. "Mom has cancer," she whispered. "Stage 4. The world around us seemed to stop. Ellen had always been a strong woman, a true pillar of the family. The thought that she could be seriously ill seemed unreal. We quickly got dressed, called a babysitter for the kids, and drove to Ellen's. The whole way, Sarah was silent, tightly gripping my hand. Ellen met us at the door of her house. She looked pale and exhausted, but was trying to smile. "Oh, dears," she said, hugging Sarah. "I'm so sorry I had to give you such news." "Mom," Sarah broke down in tears. "How could this happen? You've always taken care of your health." I stood nearby, feeling awkward and not knowing what to say. Ellen had never been my favorite person. We often argued and disagreed. But now I felt only sympathy and a desire to help. "John," Ellen turned to me, "thank you for coming. I know we haven't always gotten along, but now I need the support of the whole family." I nodded, trying to find words. "Of course, Ellen, we're here for you." The next few hours passed as if in a fog. Ellen talked about her diagnosis, about the upcoming treatment, about how she's afraid of becoming a burden to the family. "I don't want you to sacrifice your lives for me," she said, "but I'm scared to be alone." "Mom, don't even think about that." Sarah hugged her tightly. "We'll be here. Right, John?" I looked at these two women, so different and so similar at the same time. "Yes," I replied. "We'll get through this together." We returned home well past midnight. Sarah was exhausted and went straight to bed, and I sat in the kitchen, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Our family's life was about to change dramatically, but I was ready to support Sarah and Ellen in this fight. If only I had known then what I was really getting into. 2 weeks had passed since that evening when Ellen told us her diagnosis. During this time, our life had completely turned upside down. Sarah took leave from work to take care of her mother. I tried to spend more time with the kids so they wouldn't feel neglected. Ellen moved in with us. We cleared out the guest room for her, and now the house was filled with the smell of medicine and quiet conversations. But something was bothering me. I couldn't say exactly what, but some sixth sense told me that not everything was as it seemed. One morning, I walked into the kitchen and saw Ellen preparing breakfast. She was humming something to herself and looked too lively for someone with stage 4 cancer. "Good morning, Ellen," I said. "How are you feeling?" She turned around, and for a second I thought I saw something guilty in her eyes. "Oh, John, good morning. I'm a little better today, thank you." I nodded, pouring myself coffee. "Glad to hear it. What about chemotherapy? When do you start?" Ellen hesitated. "Oh, the doctor said we need to wait a bit longer. Prepare the body and all that." Something in her voice sounded insincere. I decided to dig deeper. "Can I take a look at your medical documents? Maybe we should get a second opinion?" Ellen turned sharply to me. "Why, don't you believe me?" No, of course not." I tried to smooth over the situation. "I just want to make sure we're doing everything possible." Ellen relaxed a bit. "Of course, dear. I'll show you later, okay? Right now they're somewhere in boxes after the move." I nodded and left the kitchen, feeling my suspicions grow. Something wasn't right here. Over the next few days, I started observing Ellen more closely. I noticed that she often forgot about her illness when she thought no one was watching. She could play with the grandchildren for hours, showing no signs of fatigue or pain. One evening, I accidentally overheard her talking on the phone. "Yes, Martha, everything's going according to plan. Sarah is taking such good care of me. No one suspects anything yet." I froze behind the door, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. Could my suspicions be justified? Could Ellen be lying about her illness? But why? And what should I do with this information now? I returned to Sarah's in my bedroom, feeling a heaviness in my heart. My wife was sleeping, exhausted from taking care of her sick mother. How could I tell her about my suspicions without destroying her world? I lay down next to her, staring at the ceiling, and realizing that I faced a difficult choice. Reveal the truth and risk destroying the family, or stay silent and become complicit in this deception? One thing I knew for sure. I needed evidence, and I was ready to find it. I spent the next few days gathering information. I started small, asking Sarah to show me Ellen's medical documents. My wife was surprised but agreed. "Here," she said, handing me a folder. "I just don't understand why you need this." I shrugged. "Just want to better understand the situation. Maybe I'll find some experimental therapy or something like that." Sarah smiled, and tears glistened in her eyes. "Thank you for caring so much about Mom." A pang of guilt hit me, but I pushed it away. I was doing this for our family. After examining the documents, I realized they looked suspiciously generic. No specific data, no doctor signatures. Everything was too vague. The next step was to follow Ellen. I started working from home to be able to observe her behavior. One day, when Sarah had gone shopping and the kids were at school, I saw Ellen leaving the house. She looked around and quickly walked down the street. I decided to follow her. Ellen walked to a small cafe a couple of blocks from our house. There, a woman I had never seen before was waiting for her. I sat at the next table, pulling my baseball cap lower over my eyes, and listened to their conversation. "Martha, I don't know how much longer I can keep this up," Ellen was saying. "John suspects something." "Don't be silly," replied the woman who was apparently named Martha. "You've held out this long. Think about how happy Sarah is when you're around." I felt my blood run cold. There it was, the evidence I was looking for. Returning home, I was in turmoil. Now I knew for sure that Ellen was lying. But what should I do with this knowledge? I decided to try one more method. I called the hospital where Ellen was supposedly being treated, pretending to be her son. "Hello, I'd like to inquire about my mother's condition, Ellen Thompson," I said. "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have a patient by that name," the nurse replied. This was the final confirmation I needed. Ellen had indeed made it all up. In the evening, when Sarah was putting the kids to bed and Ellen was watching TV in the living room, I sat in my office, trying to decide what to do next. On one hand, I couldn't allow this deception to continue. It was destroying our family from the inside, making everyone live in constant stress and fear. On the other hand, I understood why Ellen had taken this step. She was lonely, felt she was losing connection with her daughter and grandchildren. This lie had brought her back the family's attention and care. I looked at the family photo on my desk, happy faces of Sarah, the kids, even Ellen. Could I destroy this happiness even if it was built on a lie? But then I thought about how exhausted Sarah was, how she worried, how the kids were afraid of losing their grandmother. Was it fair to make them go through this? I realized I was facing the most difficult choice of my life. And whatever I decided, the consequences would be serious. A week had passed since I learned the truth about Ellen's deception. This week was like walking through a minefield. Every time Ellen complained about her condition, every time Sarah looked at her mother with concern, I felt everything inside me tighten from the need to keep this secret. One morning, as Sarah and I were having breakfast in the kitchen, she suddenly said, "You know, John, I'm so grateful for everything you're doing for Mom. You've become a real son to her." I nearly choked on my coffee. A sense of guilt overwhelmed me. "Sarah, listen," I began, but then Ellen entered the kitchen. "Good morning, dears," she said, smiling weakly. "Oh, I'm not feeling well today." I saw Sarah immediately jump up to help her mother. "Mom, maybe you should lie down. I'll bring your medicine." I watched this scene, feeling everything boiling inside me. Ellen's lie was not only manipulating Sarah's feelings, but also exhausting her physically and emotionally. "Ellen," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "maybe we should go to the doctor. Check if everything's all right." Ellen shot me a quick glance, in which I saw a flicker of worry. No, dear, it's just a common malaise. It'll pass." "But Mom," Sarah interjected, "John's right. Better to check. I can drive you right now." I saw Ellen start to panic. She clearly hadn't expected this turn of events. "No need to worry, honey. I'll make an appointment myself, okay?" Sarah frowned. "But Mom—" "Sarah," I put my hand on my wife's shoulder. "Let's give Mom some time. If she gets worse, we'll definitely go to the doctor. Right, Ellen?" Ellen nodded with relief. "Of course, John. Thank you for understanding." When Sarah left the kitchen, I looked straight into Ellen's eyes. She paled under my gaze. "We need to talk," I said quietly. "Tonight, after Sarah puts the kids to bed." Ellen nodded silently, and I saw fear in her eyes. She understood that I knew her secret. All day I was on pins and needles. I tried to work, but my thoughts kept returning to the upcoming conversation. How should I proceed? Give Ellen a chance to confess everything herself, or directly accuse her of lying? In the evening, when the house quieted down, I went down to the living room. Ellen was already waiting for me there, nervously fidgeting with the edge of her sweater. "John, Wait, Ellen, I interrupted her. Before you say anything, I want you to know. I know everything. I know you lied about your illness. Ellen lowered her head, and her shoulders shook with sobs. I didn't mean to. I felt so lonely, so useless. I sat down next to her, feeling a strange mixture of anger and sympathy. Ellen, do you understand what you've done? You've made the whole family go through hell. Sarah is exhausted. The kids are scared. And all this because of a lie? She raised her tear-filled eyes to me. I know I did a terrible thing. But when I saw how everyone rallied around me, how Sarah started spending more time with me, I couldn't stop. I took a deep breath, trying to calm down. What are you going to do now? Ellen shook her head. I don't know. I can't lose Sarah and the grandchildren. But I can't continue this lie either. I looked at this broken woman and realized I was facing the most difficult choice of my life. Expose Ellen and possibly destroy our family, or give her a chance to fix the situation herself. You have 2 days, Ellen, I finally said. 2 days to decide how you're going to get out of this situation. If you don't tell Sarah the truth in 2 days, I will. Ellen nodded, wiping away tears. Thank you, John. I'll try to fix everything. I stood up and headed for the door, but stopped at the exit. And Ellen, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for Sarah and our children. With these words, I left, leaving Ellen alone with her thoughts and sense of guilt. 2 days passed as if in a fog. I observed Ellen, trying to understand if she was preparing for a confession or looking for a way to continue her deception. She was quieter than usual, often sitting alone in her room, supposedly resting. Sarah noticed the change in her mother's behavior and started worrying even more. John, I think Mom is getting worse, she said to me on the evening of the second day. Maybe we should insist on hospitalization. I felt a lump forming in my throat. Time was running out, and Ellen, it seemed, still hadn't decided to confess. Let's wait until tomorrow, I replied, knowing that tomorrow everything would change, one way or another. If she doesn't get better, we'll definitely go to the hospital. Sarah nodded, hugging me. Thank you for being here. I don't know how I would have coped without you. Her words were like a knife to my heart. I felt like a traitor, hiding the truth from my wife. On the morning of the third day, I woke up with a heavy heart. Today, everything was supposed to be resolved. Going down to the kitchen, I saw Ellen sitting at the table with a cup of tea. She looked exhausted, as if she hadn't slept all night. Good morning, John, she said quietly. Good morning, Ellen, I replied, pouring myself coffee. Have you made a decision? She took a deep breath. I can't do it, John. I can't lose Sarah and the grandchildren. They're all I have. I felt everything inside me tighten with disappointment and anger. So you prefer to continue torturing them with this lie? Ellen, do you understand what you're doing? What else can I do? Her voice sounded desperate. If I confess, they'll hate me. I'll be left all alone. I looked at this broken woman and realized that now the choice was entirely up to me. I could expose her lie right now, put an end to this deception. Or I could remain silent, become complicit in this cruel game. On one hand, the truth could destroy our family. Sarah would be devastated to learn of her mother's deception. The children could lose trust in their grandmother. Ellen herself would probably be banished from the family, left in complete loneliness. On the other hand, continuing the lie was slowly eating us from the inside. Sarah was exhausting herself taking care of her sick mother. The children were living in constant fear of losing their grandmother. And how long could this go on? A month? A year? How long could we live in this illusion? I stood in the kitchen, looking at Ellen, and felt the weight of this decision on my shoulders. Whatever I chose, the consequences would be serious and far-reaching. At that moment, I heard Sarah's footsteps coming down the stairs. She was about to enter the kitchen, and I needed to make a decision right now. Tell the truth and risk destroying the family, or remain silent and become complicit in the deception. Time seemed to stop. I looked from Ellen to the door behind which Sarah was about to appear. My heart was pounding like crazy as I weighed all the pros and cons of each option. The door began to open. In that second, all possible scenarios flashed through my head. If I tell the truth, I'll see Sarah's eyes fill with pain and disappointment. I'll hear her yelling at her mother, accusing her of lies and manipulation. I'll imagine the children crying, not understanding why Grandma lied to them. I'll see Ellen hunched over, leaving our house, perhaps forever. If I stay silent, I'll wake up every morning with a heavy heart, knowing that I'm complicit in this deception. I'll watch Sarah exhaust herself taking care of her sick mother. I'll see fear in the children's eyes when they look at their grandmother. And every day I'll wonder, how long can this go on? Sarah entered the kitchen. Her gaze moved from me to Ellen and back. "Good morning," she said, frowning. "Did something happen? You have such strange faces." I opened my mouth, but the words got stuck in my throat. Time seemed to stop. At that moment I realized that whatever choice I made, I would have to live with its consequences for the rest of my days. Will I tell the truth, destroying the family but freeing all of us from the weight of the lie? Or will I remain silent, preserving the appearance of well-being but condemning us to live in an illusion? Both paths led into the unknown. Both carried both relief and pain. And whatever decision I made at this moment would determine our fate for years to come. I looked at Sarah, at Ellen, remembered our children. Each of them deserved the truth, but each could be destroyed by it. In the end, I realized there was no right choice. There was only a choice I could live with going forward, a choice for which I would be ready to take responsibility, whatever happened afterward. Taking a deep breath, I began to speak. "Sarah, we need to have a serious talk. The thing is..." And at that moment, I knew that whatever my next words would be, they would change our lives forever. And I would have to live with this choice, accepting all its consequences, good or bad. The future was unclear, but the decision had to be made here and now, and this decision was mine. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.